Today we're looking at the monk class, the martial artist of supernatural focus, as we take a look in this video at what the player's handbook tells us about playing a monk in terms of their lore and narrative, how that lore and narrative is represented in the mechanics of the game, and some useful questions you can ask yourself to elevate your roleplay performance of your monk and help them to stand out at the table as uniquely them. What is it that makes a monk a monk? Drive is one of the main factors. Monks train their body and mind to align with the multiverse and focus their eternal reservoirs of power. And this power, in particular, is known by many names. Some monks may refer to it as breath, energy, life force, essence, the self, etc. But ultimately, this inner power fuels everything that a monk does, from martial arts strikes to superhuman defenses. So, how do monks use their power? Monks create extraordinary, even sometimes supernatural effects through this focus. Their speed and strength seem often uncanny and sometimes even magical. But weapons are not required for monks. However, if a monk does choose to use a weapon, even the simplest weapons can actually become particularly deadly in their hands. Where do monks find their discipline? Some seek ascetic lifestyles, withdrawal from the world, essentially, a hermit-like existence in order to hone their focus. But others actually find that leading a chaotic, sometimes even vibrant life can help them draw strength from experience and the challenge of living that sort of lifestyle. So, why do monks adventure? Many of them will see adventuring as a test of physical and mental development. Their goal often is more than treasure, like most adventurers. It's usually actually a case of trying to reach a sort of personal mastery. And many monks actually aim ultimately to become living weapons, and therefore, by extension, perfect expressions of their training that they've had. So, that's what the player's handbook tells us about the narrative behind playing a monk. So what are the mechanical benefits? How does that actually translate into gameplay at the table? So just a note, I'm going to provide now just a summary of the features. These are summarized just for simplicity and speed, just to give you a taste of what playing a monk would be if you're not familiar with it. For the full rules of those features, I'd advise you to check out the player's handbook or these free rules, or even the system reference document 5.2 to get the full rules of how everything works. This is just a breakdown of what a monk can do, essentially. So, at level 1, you gain access to martial arts. You can use your dexterity for monk weapon and unarmed strike attacks and damage, whereas normally for a melee attack you would use strength. By being a martial artist, you can actually use dexterity instead. And you're actually also able to make unarmed strike attacks as a bonus action, not just an action. And you also use your martial arts die, which starts at a d6, for the damage with unarmed strikes and monk weapons. That basically is giving your unarmed strikes a bit of a boost. And you can also use your dexterity for the grapple and shove aspects of an unarmed strike as well. At level 1, you also gain access to unarmored defense, which means that your armor class, rather than just being 10 plus your dexterity at base, it's 10 plus dexterity and your wisdom modifier combined if you are unarmored and not wearing a shield, or wielding a shield. At level 2, you gain access to Monk's Focus, which is essentially access to the focus points mechanic. And these focus points are what fuel a lot of your class abilities, which you will recover on short or long rests. So some of the features that you can use at level 2 as part of having access to these focus points is the Flurry of Blows, which allows you to spend 1 focus point to do 2 unarmed strikes as a bonus action rather than 1. It gives you access to Patient Defense, which means that just automatically you can disengage as a bonus action where normally it would be an action, or you can actually use a focus point in order to take the dodge action and disengage action as a single bonus action. You also get Step of the Wind, which also allows you to take a dash action as a bonus action rather than a normal action. Or, again, you can use a single focus point in order to take the dash and disengage actions as a bonus action. And also Step of the Wind increases your jump distance, actually doubles it for the turn that you use the focus point. Also at level 2, you gain unarmored movement, which actually means that when you aren't wearing armor, you have an increase of speed by 10 foot, and that actually increases with level. It will start at 10 foot at level 2, but actually that increase will also increase as you level up, which is pretty cool. You also gain at level 2 Uncanny Metabolism, so when you roll initiative, you can regain all focus points and also heal yourself by a roll of your martial arts die plus your monk's level, but you can only do that once per long rest, so you'd need to have some sleep before you can do that again. Next up, at level 3, you gain access to deflecting attacks. So when you are hit by bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage, you can use a reaction to actually reduce that damage by a roll of a d10, plus your dexterity, plus your monk level. And if that damage is actually reduced to 0, you can then spend a focus point to redirect that attack to another creature. Again, all the rules of that can be found in the Player's Handbook, page 102. Also at level 3, you gain access to your monk subclass, gaining access to that subclass and its 3rd level feature. And you gain monk subclass features at level 3, level 6, and level 11, and level 17. Next up, at level 4, you gain an ability score improvement feat or another feat of your choice for which you qualify, and you also gain ability score improvement for another feat at levels 8, 12, and 16. At level 4, you gain access to the slow fall feature, which means that you can use a reaction to reduce fall damage by 5 times your monk level. So at a base, that fall damage you can reduce by 20 points, which is pretty cool as a reaction. At 5th level, you gain access to extra attack, which means when you take the attack action, you can attack twice rather than once. You also gain Stunning Strike at level 5, 1 focus point when you hit. If you spend that, the target makes a Constitution saving throw. If they fail, they're stunned until the start of your next turn. At level 6, you gain Empowered Strikes, which means your unarmed strikes can deal force damage instead of the normal type of damage, which is cool. At level 7, you gain access to Evasion, which means that when you take Dexterity saving throws, where you would take half damage on a success or full damage on a fail, that actually changes for you to taking 0 damage on a success and half damage on a failure, which is very cool. At level 9, you gain acrobatic movement. So whilst you aren't wearing armor or wielding a shield, you can move across vertical surfaces and liquids during your turn without taking any fall damage. At level 10, you gain heightened focus, which basically improves some of the features that you gained through access to the monk's focus and the focus points, which means that Flurry of Blows now gives you 3 unarmed strikes rather than 2. Patient Defense allows you to gain temporary hit points equals 2 times the roll of a martial arts die. And Step of the Wind, when you move, is actually going to allow you to bring 1 willing creature with you, and that won't provoke opportunity attacks for them either. At level 10, you'll gain Self-Restoration. At the end of your turn, you can remove the Charmed, Frightened, or Poison condition from yourself. And also, you don't suffer exhaustion from lack of food or water, which is very cool. At level 13, Deflect Energy means that you can use your Deflect Attacks feature on any damage type. So it doesn't have to be bludgeoning, slashing, or piercing damage. It can be any type of attack, so fire damage, for example. At level 14, you gain access to the Disciplined Survivor feature, which means that you're now proficient in all saving throws. You can spend 1 focus point as well to re-roll a failed saving throw as well. At level 15, you gain Perfect Focus, so when you roll initiative, if you don't use Uncanny Metabolism, you can actually regain focus points to a minimum of 4, which is very cool. At level 18, with Superior Defense, you can spend 3 focus points to gain resistance to all damage except force damage for 1 minute or until you are incapacitated. At level 19, you gain the Epic Boon feat or another eligible feat of your choice, and the one that the Player's Handbook suggests is the Boon of Irresistible Offense, which we'll take a look at now. So the Boon of Irresistible Offense, you have to be level 19 before you can take it. And you gain all of the following benefits. So you increase your strength or dexterity score by 1 to a maximum of 30. Normally it's a maximum of 20, but with an epic boon that's up to a maximum of 30, which is cool. You gain access to the Overcome Defenses feature, which means that the bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage you deal always ignores resistance. You gain access to Overwhelming Strike as well. So when you roll a 20 on a d20 for an attack roll, you can deal extra damage to the target equal to the ability score increased by the feat. So either strength or dexterity. And that extra damage's type is the same as the attack's type as well. So basically extra damage on a crit. And then at level 20, your capstone feature is Body and Mind, which allows you to increase your dexterity and wisdom by 4 to a maximum of 25, which also is superior to most common folk even being able to achieve, which is very cool. So those are all of the features mechanically that you gain. Again, that was just a summary, so the explicit details of those can be found in the Player's Handbook, or the D&D free rules, or the system reference document that is available on D&D Beyond as well. So, now we get to my favourite part, the roleplay enhancement questions. These are 10 questions that you can ask yourself when you're playing a monk to help really elevate your roleplay, to cover all of the stuff that we've talked about, particularly in terms of the narrative, and bring that to the fore in your character's regular interactions with other players or NPCs and things like that. First of all, what philosophy or discipline guides your training? Is it a spiritual, philosophical, or something else entirely? Maybe you follow a monastic order, a personal code, or an instinctual rhythm of life. Obviously, monks are highly trained individuals, highly disciplined individuals. So what is the source of that, ultimately? How do you perceive your internal power or focus? Do you see it as ki, breath, spiritual essence, life force, or just drawing on raw willpower? And regardless of what you choose there, how does that belief shape how you approach things like combat, resting, and discipline? Why did you choose the path of the monk over other martial traditions? Obviously, there's like rangers, there's fighters, to be more specific, like being a knight, something like that. Why choose the path of a monk? Perhaps maybe you were seeking peace, revenge, maybe a bit of enlightenment, control, or maybe you were just trying to escape from something, because of course monks have that kind of hermit lifestyle as well. And how does your lifestyle reflect your dedication to discipline? For example, do you live quite simply, like a really simple life, minimalistic? Maybe you regularly fast. Maybe you avoid indulgences of any kind, whether that be food, maybe celibacy, something like that. Or maybe you maintain a very strict training regime. And the other question, of course, is temptations. If you have that discipline, whether that be through regular fasting, avoiding indulgences, living a simple lifestyle, you're still going to have to come up against temptation. And how do you handle that temptation? What do you believe is the purpose of combat? As a monk, is it a sacred ritual for you? Is it a necessary evil? Maybe even it's a test to see how you have mastered yourself. Maybe it is something that you believe that the universe has presented to you, and this is a test to see if you are as controlled and disciplined as you think you are. Or maybe it's just simply a means to an end, like a tool for justice or something like that. To your monk, what is the purpose of combat? How do you view armor and weapons? Now, we know, of course, that monks are very good with weapons, but they don't need them, because they're also very good with their fists and their feet and all of that. So does your monk particularly shun armor and shields, maybe seeing them as distractions? Or do you as a monk, if you are the sort of monk that does use weapons, do you treat them with reverence, perhaps? Or are they just extensions of you and your body and your limbs? How do you respond to those who act without discipline? Maybe you're judgmental. Maybe have a bit of compassion for those people that aren't as perhaps disciplined as you. Maybe you choose to be instructive. Maybe you choose to guide these individuals to a more disciplined life. Or are you just simply indifferent toward those who don't have any sense of self-control or even restraint? What's your monk's relationship with their body? Do they see it as a temple, a tool to be honed, or maybe even, on a spiritual sense, a cage to transcend? That idea that actually the body is the vessel carrying the spirit, and that it needs to be, you transcend and free yourself of your body in a way that is spiritual ascension. And how do you deal with injury or fatigue, given the relationship that you have with your body? What would injury or fatigue do to you, maybe on a more spiritual level? And how do you deal with that? What inner conflict does your monk struggle to master? Could it be anger, pride, fear, maybe even doubt, or something a little bit deeper? A monk is going to have chosen that lifestyle for a reason, and they're trying to get mastery over something. So this is really, I think, the biggest question of all of these, which is why? What are they trying to control? What are they trying to master? What is the impetus behind the choice of being a monk? And what does your monk ultimately seek? Maybe they seek enlightenment. Maybe they wish to see more of the world, more of the universe, in a way that they couldn't before. Maybe they did something that they wish to atone for and be redeemed. Or perhaps they are simply looking to perfect themselves. Or could it be that your monk doesn't have purpose? And actually part of this monk lifestyle is to discover that purpose through travel and the trials that are presented by perhaps the life of adventure. That is the monk, the martial artist of supernatural focus. We have looked at what the Player's Handbook tells us about them narratively. We've looked at how that is translated into the mechanics of the game and their abilities. And we've also looked at the questions that you can ask yourself to really try and bring all of those qualities of the monk to the fore in your roleplay. And those things that are going to perhaps be top of mind for your monk in any given situation, whether that be combat, exploration, or social interaction with other characters as well. I will have put together a worksheet for you so that you can download. That's available for free at patreon.com/BardicQuest. All you have to do is sign up as a free member, so it's available for free. Just sign up there and you'll be able to download that. If you want to print that out, you can do so, fill that out, or if not, you've got them saved on your hard drive somewhere so that you can access those for whenever you next play a monk. So I hope you found that helpful. If you did, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel as well. And we will catch you on the next video.